Last time I made a guide on how to launch your own startup with your custom boilerplate, and today we will code that boilerplate ourselves. If you haven't watched that video, I recommend that you watch it first. And now let's get on to coding. This is going to be a long video, so I recommend that you follow along and code with me, or if you're more experienced and just want to take a look around, go to the GitHub link in the description and you can copy the repo and play with it. We'll be using SvelteKit as our meta framework, and then we'll be using Firebase for our backend, and also Stripe for payments and Tailwind to style everything up. So let's open up our terminal and set up a new project. I've got like a Notion document last time with the setup commands, and we'll paste the first one here, and let's rename this to Boilerplate tutorial. All right, so we will choose to go with a skeleton project. We'll be using TypeScript. And then let's maybe skip this, or let's add prettier. All right, now we can open the boilerplate tutorial folder and run npm install, and it will install all the dependencies. All right, once that's done, we'll install some more. So we'll need .env. We will also need Firebase and Firebase admin. Okay, next we'll install Tailwind. So if you don't know how to do it, just follow the official tutorial. Oops. And we have created the config files. So now before we open, let's also add Daisy UI, because that's the UI we'll be using with Tailwind. And let's also install Stripe. All the commands will be listed in the description for you. And let's also install the toast notifications so we can see what's going on. And if you don't have the Stripe CLI, I also recommend that you run this command, brew install Stripe, to install the Stripe CLI so that you can run a webhook locally on your computer rather, and it will allow you to track the test payments. But I've already done that, so we're not going to run this command. And then you have to do Stripe login, and it will take you to the website and just follow the instructions there. We'll get onto that later in the video. So, all right, we got all the dependencies installed. So now we can open VS Code, and let's open up our project. All right, we're in. So now let's configure Tailwind first. So we've got to make an app.css file in the src directory. So let's do it now. And paste these things here. And also we have to modify the Tailwind config. So let's paste this in. And now we have to make a layout in routes. And here we'll paste this thing. So we make a slot, and then also we import the CSS file. And now we are ready to use Tailwind in our application. Now we need to set up the .env file. So it will be in this directory right here, next to all the dot files. So we set up env. And here you will have to paste all your API keys. So how do we get those API keys? Well, first we need to create a new Firebase project. So let's do it right now. All right. you have to wait a moment. So what you simply need to do is go to the Firebase website, just sign up there. It's completely free for the base plan, and you can sign up, create a new project, and then we'll configure the Firebase in our project. So let's continue. And here we are, and now we need to enable a few things. So first, let's go to Authentication, and let's enable, click Get Started. And let's enable Google Login. All right, we have Google enabled. Next, we have to install or enable, sorry, the Firestore. Let's also click Create Database. And here you can choose the first one. Click on Next, and we can start in test mode. Now we have the Firestore enabled. And then for the future, you can also enable storage, because once you have your application set up, your SaaS app, you need to have a way to store your files, and storage is the best way to do that. So create a storage bucket in Firebase 2, and that's our Firebase setup for all the, these are all the services that we need. And now let's get the API keys. So let's go to the project overview and click on a new web app, and we'll name it the same. Click Register App, and then Firebase will generate the SDK for us that we can paste into our application. So let's copy this, and then we can go to our lib directory, and here we can replace the index.ts file with our Firebase config. So let's create firebase.ts, and let's paste this here. We also need to add some more things. I think the analytics won't be needed for now, so let's remove them. Let's add the DB, which is get Firestore, just like that. And let's also get auth, and let's get the storage. And we need to import those. So let's import at the top. Get Firestore, get auth, and get storage. Now I'm going to paste in some code, which is going to set up a user store and a dog store in Svelte that will enable us to access the user data in real time. And this is taken from the Svelte Fire library, which was made by Fireship. And you can easily follow it and follow the link in the description, and then you can read how it all works. I will quickly go through this so that you have a rough understanding of how it works. Let's also fix the imports. All right. So if you want, just pause this and rewrite. Of course, you need to have your own config. And then let's see how the store works. So first, we are making a user store function that will track the current Firebase user. And then we have an unsubscribe variable, which will hold the function to stop listening for changes if not needed. Then we check if the Firebase authentication is available and if it's running in the browser, the app. And if not, it will log a warning right here. And if the user is not present, we'll set the user to null. Here, this line uses onOffStateChanged, which will track if there is anything happening with the user. And if yes, then we'll make the changes using the set function. And at the end, we have a cleanup function that will ensure that if we don't use it anymore, we will simply unsubscribe so we don't do any unnecessary reads. And we'll export the user store at the end. Now let's quickly go through the doc store. Here we also create the unsubscribe function. We make a reference to the document in Firestore. We create a writable store with some type annotations right here. And whenever something changes, we'll change the data using set. And if it's no longer needed, we'll return the unsubscribe function. And also we get the object with these parameters here. And at the end, we also make a user data derived store. So we use an interface for type annotations. And we take the data from the user and put it in the user data store right here. So once again, if you want to learn more about how this whole thing works, simply go to the SvelteFire library page on GitHub. Then you will find all of this information more in depth. And if not, you can just simply follow along and copy this. There is a GitHub link to the source code in the description. So if you don't want to write all this, simply copy and paste it. All right, now let's also set up a Stripe and our admin files. So let's create a folder in the lib directory called server, which will ensure that it's only accessible on the server. And here we will do the admin.ts. And then we will also create our stripe.ts file here also. So in Stripe, what we need to do is create a new Stripe object with our Stripe secret key. And how do we get that Stripe secret key? Well, let me show you. So you get that right here in your Stripe dashboard. You go to developers and you have the secret key here and the publishable key right here. So simply copy them to your .env file. And also we've got to also get our admin API for Firebase. So let's do that also. Go to project settings, go to service accounts, and here you click on generate new private key. You will get a file, and that file you will put in your source code. I will rename it to service account. And remember to put it in the .gitignore file. So service account.json. That way you won't leak accidentally your API keys. So now you can copy the private key and all that stuff that is mentioned in the .env file. So I will copy and paste them here, and I'll see you in a moment. All right, I hope you set up everything there. So now let's see, we have our Stripe setup here, where we can access the Stripe variable from everywhere. And then also let's configure the admin.ts. So here, as you can see, we're getting an error. To fix this, it's pretty simple. All you have to do is do npm run check, npm run check, and it will fix the problem with your environment variables. See, everything works. And also let's simply start our application using npm run dev and see how it looks like. Let's refresh it. And we have the basic SvelteKit right here. Though I think there is a problem with styling. Let's see. Or no, it's okay. So let's see if the Tailwind works. Let's write text for Excel. Yep. So Tailwind works. And we have our Firebase file configured, our admin file configured. You can also just paste it from the source code in the description. And we have our Stripe file set up. So now let's go on to coding. So first, let's make a login route. So I use the SvelteKit files extension. I recommend that you use it too. So we go login, and we have a new page. We don't need this. All right. So what do we do on login? Let's see if it works right here. It should, if we write login here to see if it works. Yeah, all right. So we need to create the sign in option for our users, and we'll use the Firebase for that. So we will use the Google Auth provider to do that. So in the script part, let's create a new function called handle Google login. It will be an async function. We will create a new provider. And then we will get the result. Await sign in with pop-up using the provider. And we also need to import auth from the lib Firebase directory. All right. Now we have a signed in user. Under result.user. Okay, and then we will check if that user exists. So we will run the user doc ref, and we will import the DB from our Firebase file, and then we will search through the users collection and see if there is a signed in user with this UID. And let's also add the user doc snap, which will await for this reference, but we also need to write get doc and add a cons here. All right, so if there is no user, we need to create it. So if there is no user, well, Copilot is not really helpful here. We will create a batch with DB, and we will set the user doc reference with display name, which will be our signed in user.display name, or if it's not present, we'll do anonymous. Then we'll set the plan active to false, since we are making a SaaS template. Plan expires will also be null, or their Stripe customer ID will also be null, and subscription ID will also be null. All right. And then we will simply commit the changes to the Firestore database. All right, but we also need to have a button with that. So let's create a button. Let's give it some styling. So it will be primary button. Then let's click here and write login with Google. All right. Let's see if anything happens. Right now, not. Sorry, I forgot the on click. Most important part. And here, handle Google login. And nothing happens. Why is that? Right, so let's create a collection users. And right here, you have to first create some random user. And we need to create the fields that we want to have. And they are in the interface that we created in the Firebase file. So we have plan active, which is Boolean. We have a plan expires, which is also Boolean. Or sorry, it's a number. Let's do some random number first. We also need a Stripe customer ID, which is a string. And also a subscription ID, which is also a string. Oops. All right. That's our users collection. All right, I see the issue why it's not working. The Google Auth provider should be from Firebase Auth. Yep, we got logged in. All right, so I think nothing should happen right now, but if we look to our database, we have a new user with this custom ID. And yeah, so we can now add users to the database. It works. All right, I added a bit of styling. So we can create like this card at the middle. But we will create also a subroute in the login. And to have a bit better styling, we can create a layout. And here in this layout, we can create a slot with a div, which will have some simple styling like flex column, justify center, item center, all of that stuff. So we have the logging in the middle, and now we can simply have better styling. But right now, when we log a user in, we don't go anywhere, but we'd like to redirect them to the subscribe route. So we need to create a new folder underneath login, because I like to have like an onboarding process. So users log in and then they subscribe. I don't want to offer a free plan, so we can simply just put the subscribe page under login, and that's where we are going to redirect our users after they log in. So in the handle Google login function, we need to add a redirect. So we go to login/subscribe. Let's see if it works. We log in and we go to redirect it, as you can see at the top here. It would be wise to also create a folder for our components so we can reuse them. So let's do it in the lib directory. And here we will create a component called card plan. And we will make like 3 cards with different subscription tiers. So let's focus on that first. We will export 3 props. So we're going to have a title, a price, and then a type. And now let's also this is the styling for the card. Of course, you can copy the styling from the GitHub link. I won't explain every single thing because I think it's a bit of a waste of time to do that. And we need a checkout button also with our price. So let's create a checkout button .svelte component. Here we're going to have our logic to make the Stripe call to the API. So first let's import some stuff, and then we can export the price ID prop. As you can see here, we pass a price ID. And then we can create a stripe and on mount. So whenever the component is mounted, we'll run a function that will call stripe. We do await load stripe, and we get the stripe publishable key. And then we can await the stripe promise. And if there is some kind of an error, we can simply go and toast it. Let's also add a button that will be saying subscribe. And we need to create a handle checkout function. And on click, we will run that function. Let's also import the checkout button so we don't get an error. And we will also create the price IDs right here at the top, and you can paste your Stripe prices here. So whenever you create a new product, for example, we have a test product right here. You have this price, and you can copy this price ID and paste it into your project. Right, now let's change our subscribe page a bit. So, we got an error. I got a different path in my other projects. Okay, so this is some styling, and these are the cards that we made. So we got the titles at the top, and it's all dynamic thanks to Tailwind. So as you can see, please, if I make this bigger, they are bigger too, and if I make this smaller, they will get smaller. Okay, the button looks not so nice, so let's change it. Let's give it some styling. Okay, and let's give it also some padding at the top. Or not padding, but margin. Yep, this looks good. So we got our cards, and we are passing the correct price IDs to the checkout button. Now we have to implement the handle checkout function to call the Stripe checkout API. But to do that, we need to create an API route. So in routes, create a new folder called API, and we will need 3 API endpoints. So we will need checkout. We will also need a client portal to manage their billing, and we'll also need a webhook. And you need to create a server.ts file in every single one of them. So let's start with the checkout first. So we need to create a post request. And then we will get the request here. And we need to do a try catch. And here we'll get some properties from the user. So we'll need the price ID. We'll need their email, and we will also need their user ID. And then we'll await those from the request. And let's create a new Stripe session. So Stripe checkout sessions create, and we can do some metadata. And we'll pass the user ID here. And we also need to import Stripe at the top. and probably the .env config. Now let's do the customer email, which will be the email we got, payment methods, and then line items. And there we have the price with the price ID with quantity of 1. And the mode will be subscription. And then we need a success URL, which will be for now the local host, but with a different port, 5173, which is running right here if you can look at the top of the browser. And we'll redirect to app, and if the payment is cancelled, we'll redirect to login/subscribe to make them subscribe to our application. And then we have to catch some errors. But before that, we need to return a new response. With the session ID and headers application JSON, and then we catch error of type any. And we'll return a new response. With the error message and the status 500. And now we can go and try to implement the handle checkout function in our checkout button. So we got Stripe, we got the Stripe promise. So if there is no user, we subscribe to the user store that we got here. We will simply toast, you must be logged in to subscribe. But that shouldn't happen, but it's better to protect ourselves. Then we can do the try catch again. And we'll do the call with await, fetch, and we'll fetch our API checkout endpoint. With the method post, headers, application JSON, that's right. And the body will be JSON.stringify. We will get the price ID, which will be price ID we passed. User ID will be the user ID we got. And email will be user email. Then if the response is not okay, we'll throw a new error, and then we will await the response. And then we will redirect the user to checkout. with the session ID. And we will catch any errors and toast them. And stripe should be any. Okay, that's TypeScript error. Let's refresh it. Okay, something doesn't work. Oops, missing bracket. All right, so now let's check if this works. Let's click subscribe. And nothing happened. So let's look at the terminal. Auth is not initialized. So, all right, let's add another product to test. Let's call it Boilerplate test. And let's say that it will be 10 euros recurring. We will add the product. We'll go to the price. We'll copy this and paste the prices here. And now let's see if we click subscribe. Yeah, the issue is gone. I think I put the wrong prices there, which were single payments and not subscriptions, and we need subscriptions. So we are redirected to checkout, and then we can simply go and pay and come back to our application. And if we cancel, we go to the login subscribe, and let's try and do some dummy data. Right, so I filled the checkout with some dummy data, and let's see what happens. We should be redirected to the app right here. Right now we got an error because we don't have the path, but we can easily create it. Let's create a new folder called app in the routes, and let's create a page.svelte. And for now, let's just create an h1 tag that will say app here. And yep, it works. So we got ourselves a fully working checkout. Now all we need to do is to simply go and create the webhook part so that we can fulfill our payments and reflect them in the database, give users access to what they bought, and then also give them access to manage their subscriptions using the portal. So let's start with the webhook. So these are the imports that we are going to need at the top. Feel free to copy them, and then we'll create a post request, and we need to do the try catch again. So we'll get the row body from request.text. So let's put a request here. Let's also get the signature to get our request verified. So request headers.get stripe signature. Let's create an event, and let's construct a webhook event. So it will be stripe.webhooks.construct event. We'll pass the row body, the signature, and the webhook secret. And the signature has to be there, so let's add an exclamation. And we have to catch in console log an error that the webhook signature verification failed. All right, and let's return a new response with this message. All right, and we forgot our semicolon or bracket, sorry. So now we have to handle all the different events. So if the event type is equal to checkout.session.completed, oops, GitHub Copilot is not helping today. We'll create a session stripe.checkout.session, and here we pass the event.data.object. Then we console log it. Why not? And then we'll set the user ID to session.metadata.userid. And we have to add a question mark here. So here we fulfill our business logic. So we need to call the admin.db. And then we'll update the users collection. And then we'll update the user documents with our new Stripe customer ID with the new subscription ID. We'll set the plan active to true, and we'll set the plan expires to null. And we'll merge it if it's correct. So whenever a user comes back, we'll just simply connect those two data points. And that's our business logic for this. But if the event type is updated, then we'll do the same. So we'll get the subscription and the user ID like this. And then we will use the admin.db to update, paste this so it goes faster. We'll update our plan active property and our plan expires property. And if the event is of type deleted, then we'll do the same and we'll update, set the plan active to false and subscription ID to null. And then we can return a new JSON message that the operation succeeded. We also need to catch an error, so we'll just console log it and return a new response. And that's our webhook. And to run it, we need to create a new terminal. And here we'll do stripe listen. And we'll forward to our local host with our port and do the API webhook route. And you will get the webhook secret here, so you can simply paste it to your .env file if it's not present. So now let's see if we got. All right, we go to login. Let's see if it works. Okay, we are redirected. Let's click subscribe. Let's fill in some dummy data. Okay, we got redirected to app. And let's see if we got the user updated. So our plan is equal to true, and we got the Stripe customer ID. Yep, everything works. So now the final thing, we need to do the billing portal. So the billing portal will be quite simple. We also need to do the post request. We need to import a few things here. So let's also get the request as the parameters. And here we will get the structure customer ID from the request. And then we will try to create a portal session. And we will do the Stripe billing portal sessions create, pass the customer ID and the return URL to be this. And we need to add a const. I forgot. And let's return. I just found out that I could do this JSON instead of the long response, but well, who cares? Portal session.id. And let's also return a URL. And if there is an error, we will console log it, and let's change this to the shorter version. JSON with the message and status 500. All right. So we also need to add a button. So let's go to components and let's add a billing button.svelte. And here we'll create the script. So let's get the imports here. And we need to handle the click. So another async function. And let's also add a button at the bottom to manage billing. Let's give it some styling. And let's put this button on the app. billing button. All right, we got it here. So if there's no user, we will throw an error, and otherwise we will fetch a response API and portal. We post this is good, and we'll stringify the customer ID and pass in the user data.stripe customer ID, and this is required, so let's add this exclamation mark. Okay, and if the response is going to be okay or not okay, we will throw a new error, failed to create a portal session. Or let's do the toast.error. And now we can do destructure the URL, await from the response, and then we will change the location of the window to this URL, which will redirect the user to the billing portal. And we also need to catch the error. Where are we in the try? This should be wrapped in a try. So this, let's put this on the bottom, and let's catch an error. And let's see if it works. So let's manage billing. Or did I assign? No, I didn't assign the function. So on click, what's it called? Handle click. Oops. Handle click. And this should take us to the billing portal. And here we can manage our subscription. And that's pretty much it. We've got a working application, a simple logging with the Google Auth provider. Then we can manage the payments, log in our users, and then simply redirect them to the correct places. And yeah, that's it. If you want, you can add your own mail provider to send transactional emails and create new components. You can add them to the components directory and then put them wherever you want so that you can build your apps faster. And when you're making more and more SaaS applications, your library, your boilerplate can grow, and you can expand it and simply get more features whenever you launch a new app. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.